Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Creators to Creator today. Today, we have a special guest.
Hi, guys. How's it going? I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Meosha.
Yeah. So your name is Matt Fox.
Yes. Professionally, I go by Matt Patrick Fox, but my whole life I've been Matt Fox because it's just so it rolls off the tongue.
It's a cool name. I must say you have a really cool name.
Thanks. I thank my parents for that one.
It's like a famous name.
I feel like Fox in any capacity. It's
perfect.
Fox, but there's already a Matt Fox out there, so I have to go professionally by Matt Patrick Fox. So
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. So tell me from the beginning,
Sure.
I mean, I know that I met you on a ghost tour.
Yeah.
And I felt like you just had this really cool vibe and just really cool. And I just really it was like my first time actually doing something like that. But what brought you there? And let's go back to the beginning.
Sure.
Baby Matt.
Baby Matt. All right. Well, indulge me. So I started performing when I was little. I was on campouts with my older brothers and my dad, and they needed somebody to do the skits for the camp. And I did something called the Matty P Show when I was in elementary school, and I'd go up and just do all these sketches. And then fast forward to sixth grade, I was like, I think I want to try out for a play. So I tried out for Tom Sawyer at the local community theater, and I got Tom Sawyer.
Oh, wow.
So whether I liked it or not, I was like, okay, woohoo, attention, validation, something that I tried and did the first try. Well, let me just sink my whole life into this. And I did, and I had, it's something I wanted to do since I was little. So I did theater all throughout high school. I went to an amazing program at the University of Cincinnati.
Nice.
They didn't pay me to say that. I just had a really great time there. CCM was the name, College Conservatory of Music. And then the main reason I went there was because they had a showcase in front of agents and managers and casting directors in New York and LA. And a little thing called COVID came along right during my senior year, right at March 14th, like a month or so before we were supposed to fly to both cities. And it all just went like when our whole senior year, we just prepared to do this showcase.
Wow.
And it just kind of went belly up. We tried to do it virtually, but they sent along scenes. Agents always tell us that it's like pulling teeth to go to those things in the first place. So if they're at their home and they see an email of those, I guarantee most of them did just. So it was always LA, and I moved back in with my parents the first part of COVID just because, we had to hunker down.
Yeah.
I was in Cleveland for 6 months, but I'd saved up enough money. I was like, you know what? There was a casting director who our faculty felt bad. So they set us up with a bunch of casting directors and, just master classes. And one of them said she moved to New York City to pursue being in theater on September 10th, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And so she, like the day she got there, obviously 9/11 happened. And she said something that stuck with me where she was like, there was just something about being there when everybody was leaving, that there was an opportunity she could find her way in. It sucks because it kind of sounds like you're like, I'm going to capitalize on a tragedy.
Right.
But I still felt that. I'm like, I think if I have the money and I can go out there and kind of get settled, and then things open back up and I'm already settled and I'm ready to go, which still is I'm still in that limbo.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question about how I got into the ghost tours, that was literally one of the only things that was hiring in Los Angeles by the time I moved in September 2020.
Wow. So it's kind of like meant to be.
Yes. And what's funny is throughout doing it, I've obviously talked about it with many people because it's, I think, an interesting point of topic. It's an interesting day job. But they were like, well, I guess you got in your reps too during COVID. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, you were performing. You found a way to perform. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I did.
Yeah.
And it really dawned on me, like, I knew that I was like, this is a way to get comfortable in front of crowds, but, or at least just being out there. And so now it's honestly developed into its own kind of stand-up routine, because I found that the information they were giving me was just like boring people to death. And so I was like, I'll just add some jokes. And now I have probably like a tight 30 about the specific ghost locations on Hollywood and Highland. And yeah, so, and then moved out here, and and still currently am saying yes to all kinds of opportunities. You know, if I don't smell something fishy, which I've been this long enough to where I think I can have a good thing, but I'm always down to collaborate and work on things. And through that, I started taking Groundlings classes online.
That's
and
great.
I really like those. And then I have a group of friends out here that I started a sketch group with, and that's kind of like our passion main focus. Is we actually just this morning got done doing a first pass on a new video. So Definitely Not Robots is the name. And, we're on Instagram. So, but yeah, so it's nothing like I thought it would be, especially going into college. Like I thought it would be a showcase. Even the months leading up to my graduation, I thought it was going to be this thing, but I wanted to do it. I wanted to come out here, and I was able to find an agent through a referral. And
that's awesome.
Book.
You know how hard that is to like.
Oh yeah, and that's
it's insane.
I feel so fortunate.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, so I've been out a bunch for stuff. I've been in 2 commercials.
That's great.
Yeah. So, and then it's just a matter of like, you know, trying to find, I find gig work suits me very well. Like I like having different things so that I have parts of my day that are kind of free to do self tapes and stuff like this. So
totally get
that's
that.
kind of the big match spiel, but I told you, but
no, thank you for making time for us. It's interesting, you know, I always wonder, like growing up, because I would think like usually there's something in us that we kind of like, anyone that's in the industry or whatever you're doing, it's like something you like when you were a child, you discovered it and you didn't really know what it was. So it's kind of like, I would say, were you always kind of
performative in a way?
In a way.
Yeah, like what's funny is that's something I've had to come to terms with as an adult, is like, why am I doing this? If I'm going to live in one of the most expensive cities, spend all my time alone in my car, why am I doing this? And there was a big chunk of it because I discovered it so young. I was like, this is just the way I got validation and attention from people. So one of the things I've been enjoying is like, okay, well, what's beyond that? What is the thing that you want to say and reach with the things that you're creating and the things you collaborate on?
Right.
And the hardest thing I think right now is like, I have a friend who always says like, your taste is always going to be higher than where you're at, or your capabilities, at least when you're trying to work your way up. Cause I work for as a staff writer sometimes, but just doing kind of gig-based sketch stuff for a YouTube company that, you know, isn't my cup of tea.
Right.
But we've been using those resources and those connections to then say, hey, we have Definitely Not Robots on the side. Can you help us film this stuff? And they're like, yeah. So it's been a journey to come from, like, you know, that always being just kind of that. I was never spazzy. Like I was the youngest of 3 boys.
Nice.
In a suburb outside of Cleveland called Olmsted Falls. So very, you know, just, you know, run of the mill standard stuff. And I guess that was the epitome of like a small pond. And then you come here and obviously you can never anticipate what it's like to throw yourself into it. But I do I do know that like since day one, I've always just loved laughter. Yeah. And I think that's probably the youngest child in me. And my dad's also kind of like a more straight military. He's in the military. Nice. And so it was always just kind of poking and being a smart ass to, you know, just kind of poke the holes in the whole kind of illusion that can be suburban Ohio life. even before I knew kind of that's what I was doing. And then I got into college and went to an art school. So it's like you're always forced to meet different perspectives. And but yeah, at the core, I've always just been just goofy, and I love being silly and goofy because, you know, I think I came from a town where people took themselves way too seriously, you know, and I think there's a time and a place for that. But I think, you know, at the end of the day, we're all just rotating around a big ball of gas made of stardust. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I totally
cool.
get that. I totally get that. And that's what I think. I mean, that's what makes life better. You have to like laughter. You can't take it too seriously, or it's like gonna have, you know, it's like life is already tough.
Yeah.
So why add to it?
Well, I have a question for you. I guess it's like, do you find that there's moments of levity in horror, or like how you know what I mean? Like, because I've always been interested in
that genre.
That genre. And I guess like,
yeah, I mean, so I did this film about a year ago, and it's a psychological horror, and I mainly categorize it as that because like most of my films are in that kind of category where it's dealing with real life situations, but you're just kind of making it more scary with like an undertone of like horror element to, like Get Out,
right
per se. I'm sure there were some scenes that are definitely exaggerated, but I'm sure, you know, even in that you find the comedy of it. It's kind of like, it's pretty funny. Like even the running scene, there's so many scenes like it's on. I mean, I haven't laughed so much on a set.
I was just
last year. We laughed between takes and had so much fun. Like it was such a family, and it was called Unfinished, and I was just thrilled to be a part of that, as you know, assisting and directing my amazing mentor Ronnie Warner. But I will say, I think he even told me, he set me aside. He was like, Meosha, thank you for being here. Like, you're like literally someone that balanced me out, because he's like, I was so stressed out, you know, under like, and he's like, you're coming here, bringing the peace and that mold, and also making people like feel good and laughter. I'm like, oh man, you know, that's what I am. That's what I do. You have to add that to it too, because then it's too serious and everyone's like,
I feel like we got along on the Ghost tour. It was just, I noticed that we both realized of just kind of the crazy, absurd situation we were in. We're like, yeah, we're going to go talk about some dead people that died in the 1920s in this old Disney theater. And yeah, I feel like people on set too can really pick up on that a mile away.
Yeah.
And I think especially as a creative, like, I don't know how, like, I've met plenty of grumpy grips or gaffers, you know, like maybe they don't have to be, they rely on, you know, maybe somebody else to do it. But I found that, like, and this is a saying that, you know, everybody says, but it's like, it really is like, you're going to be spending all day on set with people. If it's just a plus if they don't want to punch you in the face at the end of it.
Right.
But it's a huge bonus if, like, no, it's, you know, game time's game time, but it's also just a positive atmosphere, because
that's it. And that's what I think, that's what I liked about what you're doing. And which brings my question is, so you get into it and you kind of, you add your own like spin to it. Do you believe in ghosts?
Oof. It's a loaded question. Like, what's funny is, I'll answer your question, but what's funny is there are people that come on the tour, and I've had a group of like 15 people, and I'm like, all right, who believes in ghosts? And nobody raises their hand.
Right, everyone's like,
and I'm
even
like,
if they do.
Okay, I like to go to the beach, but I don't like sand and water. Like, it makes no sense. But I believe in, very much so, just because of the track of my own life, going from suburbia to art school and then to Los Angeles. My life has been a textbook of like, oh, there are things you thought you knew that you didn't even have any comprehension of, you know, like trying to explain to a worm what flying is, and what to a bird what a computer is, you know. It's like, so I think there's definitely a level of what that is, at least in the realm of specters and ghouls and ghosts. But the most interesting explanation I've heard for it, and if again, if you'll indulge me, but it blew my mind. I was like, huh, apparently like there's a school of thought that like when people have asked me this questions, they're like, what do you really believe? And so I used to just say, oh, I believe in the energies and all that stuff. But this is my, I guess, hyper specific answers. Like when somebody dies, a lot of times some people think that what you're clinging to at the moment of death influences where you go next. So if you're, and then you have to go into your next life or the next place to work out whatever you were still clinging to. And some people believe, and I think this is where I'd fall, is like when you have something like a death or a suicide, which most of these stories on the tour are about, you have something like that, and there's definitely at that moment of death some kind of deep rooted kind of aversion to the death that's happening, and so that energy becomes so strong it literally stays and hangs in the air or in the energy around it. So, but the long and short of it is, yes, I haven't seen a ghost, but I have seen my dad, was a major in Iraq. I saw him after he saw a ghost. And he was just white. And he was just like, I've never seen somebody more terrified. And I remember him explaining it, and I was just like, I don't think my dad would joke about that. Like I don't think he'd be one to, pull a fast one like that. So what about you? Do you believe in ghosts?
I love this interview. It's like I'm being interviewed.
I'm sorry. I'm curious.
I love it. I wouldn't say ghosts, but I do believe in spirits. I think that's kind of the same thing technically, right? Spirits. I do believe that there are good and bad. I think there are people, I think once you leave here, like your spirit goes either to, heaven or the other place. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. And I think if you kill someone, on earth, you're going to suffer the consequences, which is either execution or prison. And if you be good, you're not going to go to prison. You get away with it. Right. Or that. But yeah, there's consequences on earth. So there has to be some world that we don't see. So I do believe that there, I mean, there's things that I've growing up as my dad is a pastor, and growing up in church and stuff, like you do kind of get to like a different type of, like I've always been, growing up, I would go to church like again, and then I got older, and then I experienced God for myself, and then I've never felt anything so like strong or real to me, like that kind of experience. So I know that God does exist and God is real. And as a believer, I do believe that, I think that spirits are serious, like, because sometimes you kind of think there are people that, you meet and you see, and sometimes they're talking to themselves and you're just like, I wonder who they're talking to, or like, what's happening over there?
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of things.
I just think I'm with you. There's so much that already the proven track record of just human consciousness in general has completely led us to false conceptions. So it's like, how could there not be something greater now, that we can't fathom and understand?
Yeah.
And I think that whole realm is something that, like, just like space, a whole new frontier. That I think what's super cool about art in general, and especially I think comedy too, because it can just open your heart in general for this kind of message to come in. But it's like, I think art, and that's why I think I like the subject of ghosts, because I'm not like a person, like I have people come on with like, what do you call them?
EMF like those, yeah.
And they're really into it, and I feel bad because I've seen Ghost Hunters International, and I memorized the script that my boss sent me. But I've come to really enjoy the fact that, like, there is something to be said about what I think art does to your consciousness, to emboldening individual experience. And I think what's cool about ghost tours is, like, the whole time I'm talking about really crazy circumstances and experiences, and a lot of the stories on the ghost tours are about the people who supposedly now still haunt it, and also the people who are affected by that. And I think, I don't know. It's kind of like you said, it found me, because I've always liked talking to people. I've always liked telling stories, and I think way too heavily, way too much about a lot of different things. And of course, in the realm of ghosts and the beyond, it's like you can just go off. So as you're experiencing right now, somebody asked me that on a tour, and I'm like, we have about 5 minutes till our next one. Talk your ear off about what I think about the afterlife, or
Right.
So
Yeah, I always find it fascinating because I'm sure you've come in contact with, I'm sure, a bunch of characters through, your tours. What was one, like a tour that, I don't know, what's one of your favorite ones to tell on the tour?
my favorite story.
Yeah, this story, yeah.
Um, there's a story on the tour and a story from the tour that are both mind-blowing me. The one on the tour was like, there was a guy who came running past, and he was like the most polite thief ever. He was like, excuse me. And I'm with this like family from like Michigan with these small kids, and this guy just comes bumping past us. And then the shop owner comes near him. And I kid you not, from like me to here is him. The shop owner's next to me and pulls out a gun and pulls the trigger. It was pepper spray.
Whoa.
About 2 seconds on that tour where I was like, I'm about to watch a man be executed. And of course, after that happened, I turned to the family from Michigan, and like they were just like stunned, and then they just started busting out laughing. I was like, okay, they're good sports. Because I always say, like, you may not see a ghost, but you'll see something you've never seen before.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Hollywood after the lights go down. But the story on the tour that definitely creeps me out the most, that's my favorite to tell, is the Hollywood sign has a ton of different sightings of this woman named Peg Entwistle. She was an actress who came here in like, I think the 30s from Broadway. She was like famous on Broadway, came here. She spent a whole record hot summer by herself in like Laurel Canyon in her uncle's place. And she got really depressed. Her agent never called, so she jumped off the top of the H and took her own life.
Wow.
And according to legend, the very next day she got a phone call at her uncle's house from her agent saying, hey, I think Beverly Hills Playhouse wants you to do the lead role in this new play about a woman who commits suicide at the end.
Isn't that crazy?
It's almost like it's weird to call it serendipity because it's so macabre, but the story about her is so many people have seen her. And there's a story of before they had all the fancy kind of like security stuff up there where, they have motion detectors now and lights and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They just had a park ranger that would post up in an SUV as a deterrent. Like it would just be one park ranger up there on Mount Lee. So he'd be, and they slept all the time.
Right.
They all just like, they slept. His paycheck. But there was this guy, I think it was in 86. He never had a problem with falling asleep in his car. Excuse me, he never had insomnia. And then for like 4 nights, he could not sleep. And he like took sleeping pills, nothing happened. He was starting to get concerned. So on the 5th night, he reclines and he like doesn't feel anything, but then he's out. And he said that he had a lucid dream where he astral projected, basically. He saw his soul leave his body in the middle of the night from the SUV all the way over into Burbank. Wow. Then he said in this kind of dreamlike state, he was watching himself walk around his house in Burbank. And he said out of his bedroom came Peg Entwistle, who was beckoning him. He said it was a woman dressed like she was in the 30s or, like a flapper or something from that time period. He was shown a picture afterwards and he's like, that was the woman in my dream. And she was beckoning him just to follow. So he started following Peg Entwistle in his dream, just like around his house. He said for like 20 minutes.
Wow.
He then said Peg went inside and pulled down the lever to the ladder and started walking up. And as he was walking up the ladder to follow her, he's like, I felt weird. I felt like I was kind of awake, kind of not. He was like, got to the final step where I was about to step into the attic, and he caught himself. He was on top of the H.
Whoa.
And slept walked and climbed up to the top.
That's gnarly, isn't it?
And
gnarly.
It is. It's crazy. And to me, that's just like, like if there's anywhere where like a spirit would have domain, it's in the place where we have a whole other plane of consciousness, which is sleeping.
Yeah.
So it's like Freddy Krueger,
Right. Oh my God.
That one creeps me out the most. That one is probably my favorite to tell.
Yeah.
Just because it honestly does, like it it freaks me out. And that's always, if everybody on the tour at least goes like, oh, on that
Yeah.
one.
Oh yeah. You're like, you
Yeah.
swore. Yeah. Absolutely. Have you ever had anyone that like on the tour and they were like trying to tell a story? I can't imagine the kind of characters on your tour. Like, have you ever had anyone who's like, okay, I'll tell a story? Really? You've had that?
They are like overbalanced as far as the numbers. It's by far a ton of Midwestern moms. They love to tell their ghost stories.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's hilarious.
you know, I have a Midwestern mom, so I'm like, yeah, cool. Like this is not annoying, but I had one woman, we were at the Chinese theater, and like she was going around just like I was trying to talk about the different handprints and then eventually get to the story about how haunted that place is. And she was like just talking about her own experience with her. And then she kept doing it, and then she kept doing it. And it got to the point where like I think her husband like told her, was like, you know, we paid for him to give the tour.
Right. Yeah.
So she was a good sport, but like, oh yeah, she just got caught up in it. I get drunk people sometimes.
Oh my God.
The never where it's gotten bad. Like honestly, it's honestly kind of fun because like in the beginning they're just kind of like, this is kind of dumb. Like I want to go back to drink. By the end, they're so drunk that they're like everywhere and like that happened here.
Oh, that's great. That's so great. Oh, I mean, I gotta say that I think what you're doing is awesome. And but how do you like stay like, I'm sure it gets repetitive, right? And then it's like, do you kind of write in some nuances? Do you add something different and that you didn't do last time? Or how do you keep it fresh for yourself?
I try every time to really, because my main focus and hope and dream is to pursue improv, which that's what I've been doing professionally for the longest. Like that was the first professional job I had with the troupe in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I've done Groundlings out here, and so it's less of stand-up. So it's almost like I treat it more so of like what they're giving me, what I can tell their night needs to be. If it's like a group of people my age that are really trying to get the shit scared out of them, like I'll try and maybe embellish and add and one more person died here, or talk up the gruesomeness of their death. Or if it's a group of kids that I've had before that bring all kinds of EMT or EMF detectors and all kinds of paranormal stuff, I try and really lean heavily into like the ghost aspect rather than the details of the gruesome deaths. So it's like, it's always a challenge for me because like at this point I've been doing it for a year and a half, and I've been doing other gigs as far as then, and this is the only one that I've hung on to for this long. Okay. Every other gig is shifted into some other connection or but yeah, I would say what keeps us fresh is who exactly is on this tour. Okay. Kind of like an improv, who are you in the scene with? What is your relationship to this character? And how do you best, not exploit, but like how do you best connect with, you know, I get these all the time, and these are the ones where I'm like, oof, afterwards by a car is it's me and two other people, and it's a couple on a date, and one of them is just not into it. That's happened so many times. And it's mainly the girlfriends with their boyfriends, and the boyfriends are like on their phone while I'm talking, or they're just so not into it. They're like, this dude is reading from a script, which I'm like, I am. Right. Like, you paid for it, pal. Right. Right. I'm like, you get what you paid for. Right. Yeah. So those are the ones that are the most difficult to do. But I love, they do Match.com ones for like people that are single in their 40s. And those are a blast because people are going there to socialize. Oh, okay. And all very outgoing. And that's also where we get the biggest tips with the biggest group. So that's not bad. But
that's great.
Yeah, but I love the Match.com ones because everybody's just down for a good time and everybody wants to talk to everybody because they're hoping to meet people. Yeah.
That's cool.
The whole game.
I love that. I love like I would have Match.com. That's great. What's next for you? What do you have on the horizon? I know you have this show that you're doing with your friends.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. But
Yeah.
what's next? What do you want in like the next 5 years? What is it that you're looking to do?
My ultimate dream is to be on SNL or in some kind of sketch show equivalent where it's either like run by, me and my friends and we do that. Um, I also would be totally content and happy as a staff writer. I kind of discovered comedic staff writing within the last year as we got brought on to this YouTube company to write their sketches, punch up their jokes. And I'm like, oh my God, there are people in this world that get paid to write and tell jokes. And
Right.
not in like a stand-up way where it's like you have to perform it too. Like your job is literally to sit in a room and write jokes and be basically a yes man to whoever's running it.
Right.
So my dream would be to write and also perform in something comedic, whether it's sketch. But my dream since I've been little was to do a kind of like Rick and Morty is my favorite. And I
Totally
grew up
awesome.
watching Family Guy and South Park and Simpsons. To write and voice act, or like what Nick Kroll does,
Okay. Yeah.
like that, because I've always made goofy and silly voices, and then to not only be able to do those, but also like write what they say and
Heck
come
yeah.
up with, and I love adult animation because it almost feels like you can just do anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's boundless imagination, but it's also because they're animated and it's adult. It's almost like you're coddling your inner child to be like, it's okay, think about these deep things. It's all right. It's a fart joke, like that. That's why I like Rick and Morty.
It's a great show. Love that.
Yeah. So
Such.
yeah, that's kind of the goal. And I'm just trying to put so many different pots and different fires. Is that the expression? Pots on the fire. I don't know.
Yeah. Whatever
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah.
Popcorn in the microwave.
Exactly. Right. But yeah, I really want to jump into Groundlings. They're going back in person.
That's great.
And I would love to try and work through that. And two spec scripts written for Rick and Morty and Righteous Gemstones. So I'm trying to workshop those. And
Heck yeah.
yeah.
Just keep plugging it. That's all it takes. It's the consistency is really the key to anything, I think, whatever you're trying to do. But which brings me to my next question. What inspires you? And yeah, what inspires you as a creator, or who? And why?
Yeah. I'm always inspired by very original people who like think outside the box, but not necessarily for originality's sake, more so for the sake of like, I guess I really admire. When I was in college, I kind of came from a bit of a place in my upbringing where like I was from suburban Ohio and my worldview reflected that. The more I went to art school, the more I met new people and had new experiences, I came to really deeply respect people who can entertain ideas with accepting them. I really got into philosophy and I started to admire a lot of people who, because I grew up very Catholic.
Yeah.
And what's funny is like there was a period of time where, I got away from it. And now I'm back to, I found it in my own way again, not necessarily through Catholicism, but I started to listen to religions that I wasn't exposed to as a kid. So like Alan Watts, who's like a Taoist, and more Eastern schools of thought. And I'm really inspired by people who use art to raise the collective consciousness.
I love that.
That's a hoity-toity, foofy-floofy way of saying, oddly enough, that's why I like Rick and Morty, because there is something about watching it that I get that they're hinting at a bigger meaning. But I also really respect people that don't take that too seriously and they add a fart joke or you know what I mean? Like that's, I think, the duality of, I guess, my comedic persona that I enjoy is like, I really enjoy philosophy and people who really dive deep into those kind of things. And the more perspectives that I can get, it's like, yum, yum, yum. I like, because I grew up in such a narrow one, and coupling that with the fact of like, I've always gotten trapped in some of those ways of thinking.
Yeah.
So what always brings me back is that just base level comedy of just like, what is just at the end of the day, we're just, all human beings who gotta, go to sleep, eat, like basic things, that seem trivial.
Yeah.
So that's a roundabout way of saying I heard that once from I listened to a guy named Ram Dass, who was he was a Harvard professor who then eventually went to he was like a Harvard professor in psychology, and he went to the East and he studied in India. And what he did was he kind of brought back those kind of lessons, but did it in a very hyper intellectual way. And has these lectures that I connect with, because I think about things. I have OCD, and I think about thoughts. That's literally what, if I had a stand-up special, it'd be like thinking about thinking, like, because it's the only thing I can't kind of reach bedrock with. It's just, it all comes back into itself.
Yeah.
And I like what he has to say, because he kind of takes these ideas of how to just live a more balanced, open, compassionate life. And the thing that I found, especially in comedy and improv, is like, the more open you are to the cadence and the rhythm and just new ideas, the better. So I really like people who can expand my way of thought, so I can undercut it with a fart joke, you know what I mean? Just so people don't think I'm taking it too seriously.
No, I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. I love that. And I love that collective thought, the consciousness. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what I think, as far as like I create films, even I do it within the horror genre, because I feel like people are more open. They're coming to be scared, but it's one of the top like genres of, it's easy to bring people to the movie to watch a scary movie. Like, they're thinking, I'm going to be scared, but then they're like, actually made me think about something. I want to actually have a conversation after I'm done. So it could be a little controversial sometimes, sure. But I want to be able to have those conversations where you don't like, like how, what was that film? Well, it's kind of deep. Eyes Wide Shut, Stanley Kubrick. That was a fantastic film. I watch it over and over again. One of my favorites. And it's one of those things, it's like, it's so deep. It's not just a movie. It's just so many nuances that when I watch it again, I'm like, oh my God, Stanley was just brilliant. Like the way he kind of, you watch it again, you catch something else. And I mean, there's like a breakdown of the movie, and down to the lights, everything, there was a meaning to like everything.
Right?
Like, yes. It's how do you think? I love that. And yeah.
I think that's what I remember, because there's a period of time right before I went to acting school where I was like, do I want to be an optometrist? Do I want to, be a neuroscience major? Like, I had all these thoughts, and I remember thinking about that and going sit down and just clicking whatever's first on Netflix, and it was Spotlight, the movie about the church scandal. And I remember after being done, and I'm like, I want to be a part of films. And I think that like a really well done drama, a really well done comedy, really well done horror, in horror, the scares and all that, the fear opens you up. In laughter, it's the joy that opens you up. And then in drama, it's that sadness. And I remember going away from that movie, I'm like, you could try to explain to somebody what had happened in Boston with that situation. And I don't think you could come at them with an article and research, but there's just no way that you could have come to that human understanding that I felt after that movie without the brilliance of what that cast, that director, that whole production did. Yeah. And that's what keeps me going, is like to hopefully work on something like that, where Good Will Hunting did the same thing for me. I remember going through a rough time in my life, and I remember just watching that movie, and I'm like, it's almost that universal conscious lifting thing where it's like, a lot of times when that happens, it's so transcendent that you can't put language to it.
No.
And that's what I think what film does, is it has a way of speaking that unspeakable, because it's an experience. You know, you can't put a name to it.
Exactly.
And Kubrick's films, I mean, he just does all like,
He
I think
was
he
so
lives
beyond
by
his
that.
time.
He's like, I'm gonna get you and not know you got it, and to go back and be like, how did I not see all of this and
Right.
how it influenced me? And it's
Right,
yeah,
exactly. It's brilliant. It's so cool. My last question to you would
yeah.
be, what advice would you give to someone that wants to either come to LA, Hollywood, and to get in this crazy industry? What does that look like?
Um, to me, it's like living in a split realization, which is it's simultaneously going to be the most fun and adventurous and exhilarating thing you're ever going to do. And it's probably going to be the scariest and most depressing thing you ever do. You know what I mean? Like I have had moments here in my life, and they're brief, especially starting out. Like I was on a set for a project I'm really excited. I can't talk about because I signed an NDA, but I'm really excited about it.
Love those.
Yeah, I know. uh, and I remember it was so brief. I had a Game Time commercial, it was like a ticketing app, and an Oscar Mayer Wiener commercial. So those were 3 4-hour experiences out of a year and a half being here that I was like, I just felt something light up in me being on set, knowing that this is something I wanted to do, knowing you're in that collaborative atmosphere. But like, I've also had those nights where like, I'm like, my family's all the way across the country. I haven't done anything creative in 2 weeks because I'm trying to pay my rent. I'm, just lonely or sad. And I think what I would say is like, it's a simple piece of advice that I got one time. I saw this guy after a Broadway show I really liked, and I saw him at the door and I was like, do you have any advice? And he's like, just by resolving within yourself that you are not going to give up, you already beat half the people who are going to try, because most people will give up. And what do they give up? It's not when something tremendous and terrible happens, like you got cheated out of a contract. That does happen, but like it's more so of that slow burn of, really unpleasant experiences. But I think being open to that and being open to like how much it is going to suck, because you're going kind of against the grain of what you're meant to subscribe to your whole life, which is if you do this in elementary school, you can do this in middle school, and you do this in middle school, you can do this in high school, and then you can do this in college, and then you can do this when you're grown up, and then you have kids, and which is a completely valid way to live. But you kind of are going against that whole thing, or at least just kind of not doing kind of the most conducive action towards, if that's your goal,
Right.
You're kind of going against it. So it's a matter of being really patient with yourself.
Yes.
And simultaneously thinking like, I'm talented, I'm funny, I know what I'm doing, while at the same time completely realizing that like I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I'm not as good as other people who work on their craft more often than I do. What can I do to get better? But also, what do I know that I'm capable of, so I don't fall to pieces when I get rejected? Because you get rejected like it's your job. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's my TED Talk about. And then there's sometimes when people are like, what's your biggest advice? And I'm like, don't do it. Yeah. But I can't say that because I'm doing it. So you have to,
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that advice. That's so good. So great. I feel the same. I absolutely feel the same thing. I think it's one of the things that goes back to, you just never stop. It's like watering like you have a garden, obviously nothing grows right then, but eventually you're going to see your harvest. And yeah, that's the key. It's like, don't stop watering that garden. Keep going, plant those seeds for sure. So thank you so much for coming on. It was wonderful talking to you. You're amazing.
Thanks. This was honestly, this was just great to, talk about all this,
Yeah.
Just a fellow creative. I really appreciate you bringing me on.
Thank you for coming on. I think this is going to definitely help a lot of people. The show's been doing really great. A lot of listeners. So I think this is going to be great. So thank you very much for your advice and awesome stories. I wish you can tell more, but next time.
I've been doing it for so long now. There's just too many.
Where can people find you on social media and follow you? And
my is at Big Fat Mox. My name is Matt Fox, so it's BIGFATTMOX.
Love
So
that.
if you switch the M and the F in the Big Fat Mox. And then you could also find me, there's a link there to def, DEF underscore not underscore robots, def not robots, which is the sketch group that me and my buddies, we have 2 videos up, but we just finished a 3rd and we're really excited. So yeah, it is exciting just to create your own stuff and say, screw the whole production system. We're going to do it ourselves.
Hey, I mean, why not? Steven Soderbergh, I think he actually did it. I want to say he's the one that did, oh my God, Unsane. They shot it all on the iPhone 7, I believe. iPhone 7. Yeah, it was in the movie theaters. It did really well. It was a fantastic horror movie. So it can be done. It can be done. Anything.
That is another piece of advice, is just making your own stuff, just to come to the table when like you may need to ask a favor, be like, hey, can you refer me to this person?
Right.
Sure. What do you got? And if you don't got anything, it's like, oh.
Ta-da!
Yeah, it's like, hey, wasn't this coffee charming? I mean, come on, this is all you need.
I love it. Thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you just gracing us with your time. Until next time. Thank you guys for listening. And always remember to live, love, love. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.